right back live in the studio here at WLCN. Our guest this morning is Natalie Marquez, who is intensely interested in Down syndrome youngsters because she and Scotty have a beautiful little girl. 648-5510. Anybody might have some input or questions. This is a very, very serious subject matter for parents who experience this particular phenomenon, and I guess I don't know whether that's correct characterization or not. But 1 in 691 births, that's kind of phenomenal to me. One thing I've noticed, Natalie, is in what little experience I've had with Down syndrome youngsters, they always seem to be very affectionate and very caring and very loving. That seems to carry through in the few instances that I have encountered with youngsters.
You know, we don't like to refer as a group that they have certain characteristics because they're each such individual children in their own right. But you are correct. For whatever reason, and I don't think there's been any scientific studies done in this area, children with Down syndrome do seem to be extremely affectionate, and the only thing I can come up with as I've watched Corinne grow is that, you know, could it be that she does not get the jading the way that we do over time? Because I don't know how her mind works in terms of what she retains and what she doesn't, but she doesn't possibly take every event in her life and group it into in a manner that would cause her to become jaded about something or cause her to make a opinion about something and carry that opinion through across different situations. Where we, as adults, we can discuss this. We know that we carry with us certain things, and in first meeting individuals, we have first impressions, and it's all based on our prior experiences and you know, how we've maybe been hurt in the past, how open we are to bringing new people into our lives. I don't know if it has something to do with how Down syndrome children process information. Maybe they just don't carry and formulate those types of ideas and opinions about the world, so that they are always open to new experiences. They are always happy to greet even strangers. I don't know.
Is it fair to state that they seem to be more upbeat? Would that be correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I actually, when I picked up Corinne yesterday, she goes to Kids Club at the First United Methodist Church, and when I picked her up, the caregiver that watches all the children, her name is Tara, she's wonderful, she said, you know, today Corinne picked up something that she wasn't supposed to have, and she went running from me because she wanted to keep
check it out.
She didn't want to have to
mine.
give it back. And she fell and bit her tongue, and she stood up and she was bleeding. I'm fine. And she's like, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, generally a kid immediately starts crying, and so her question to me, does she feel pain? And I thought, wow, that's a loaded question. I could talk about that forever. Pain in, you know, what sense? She was talking physical pain. And, you know, truth of the matter, and this is scientific, they do have less sensitivity than typical children have. So you can, I don't suggest you go around pinching individuals with Down syndrome, but you can grab a hold of them possibly and squeeze a little harder than you could on a typical child before they would wince. They have lower tone, which affects all of those things. So in terms of hot and cold even, it takes a little bit more of an extreme situation for her to realize, ooh, that's hot, as opposed to Liam, our son, who immediately, ooh, that's hot. So there is a delayed reaction in terms of their senses.
You know, you've mentioned a couple of things that happen to us every day. For instance, this physical reactions not being quite as sharply tuned, maybe.
Sure.
And you also mentioned the fact that she doesn't care whether she's seen you 100 times or this is the first time. She thinks you're a nice person and she's happy to
That's
see
right.
you. And how do you, as her mom, keep yourself from getting overprotective? Because she has a responsibility, like all of our kids, to be all she can be. And it would be so easy to say, oh, don't go by that, you could get hurt. Or to say, don't talk to strangers, like we're told to tell our children now.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself cool?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, a lot of that was addressed by moving back to a small town
Is that
among
right?
people I trust and that my parents trust and that we know. We feel that we have an inherent, built-in sense of protection for her. And I know that you can't think like that always, but our chances are greater here in a smaller pool of people and knowing them and who she's around on a daily basis, as opposed to had we stayed in Virginia and not knowing who was coming and going at her school at all times, because just the pure size of the school. So that was a big factor in coming back here. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. But in general, yes, it is terrifying because she's so welcoming and open to anyone. Scott and I have found comfort in her stubborn streak. And, you know, she has her own personality that is unique to her that would not be the same for another child with Down syndrome.
Or without.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She's a person.
That's absolutely true. And we have found that she has an innate sense of right and wrong, sense of touch and what's permitted and it's natural for her. And we just see that.
That's probably just a gift that they're given.
Well, I hope, but I don't know. We haven't really explored that concern. I would love to hear from other parents that have children with Down syndrome that possibly are not on the milder side of the spectrum, where maybe they're not as intuitive as some other children with Down syndrome are, what their feelings are on that. Because as Corinne has gotten older, Scott and I have noticed her unique personality develop, that our concerns have not... They've been addressed to a certain degree, I guess you could say. So because of that, we haven't really explored that issue a lot more. But that is also part of the network we're trying to start through our nonprofit, is to bring families together and get a group of support so parents can discuss their issues, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing in their schools, what the reactions are from teachers and other friends and family members to their child having Down syndrome. Because the more you get that open dialogue with other families that have children with Down syndrome, the more you can do for the Down syndrome community in general.
In that, in that vein, do we have local folks here that with whom you've come in contact? Kind of a quote, for want of a better word, support group?
Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said, because of the law practice that I have, that I did not expect to be, that kind of came in almost an effortless fashion in the beginning. I had started my practice, as you know, and then things kind of snowballed once I met Phil Montalvo, and that all kind of happened, and wonderful blessing. But because that took off, it kind of derailed me from the efforts I was able to put in at the time to the nonprofit, and we have kept it going, but we've very much not advertised it a lot. We've not put it out there to a great degree, because once we do it, we want it to be done well. We don't want to start the momentum, get a large board started just to have my presence not there so that the momentum stops, you know. So when we do it, we have to be prepared to do it 100%, and there's no turning back at that point. So we're just kind of getting the feelers out that we're here. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for people that if you have an interest, we feel that we've got a lot of great ideas that we have brought back from Virginia, which is an area of great progression in this area, and we are not seeing those ideas implemented here in Central Illinois, even in Bloomington and Springfield and whatnot. And I'm somewhat protective of those ideas because I want to save them for our organization to run with.
Rightfully so.
Yes. So I don't want to get into too much with regard to those ideas, but what I would like to say is generally, the nonprofit would like to form and develop strong relationships with local hospitals to possibly start a Down syndrome center for excellence or a center for excellence that can go beyond Down syndrome into other chromosomal abnormalities that aren't even diagnosed. Right now, we have parents in Central Illinois that have to travel as far as Chicago to see a geneticist and get their full host of services and very specialized services for the specific issues that may be influencing their child. And then you got others that have to go clear down to, did I say St. Louis already?
No, Chicago.
Okay, and then you have the others that go down to St. Louis and have to go to the Children's Hospital there for those types of services. Either way, some parents do not have the resources and the money to make that type of trip.
That's an important factor.
It really is. And, you know, there's no reason with how wonderful our hospitals are here that we can't get something started right here in Central Illinois. I'd like to be at the forefront of that. I would like to keep that idea going through our nonprofit. So I kind of let that cat out of the bag. Hopefully it stays with our association.
That's all right.
But
I don't mean to be indelicate, but forgive me. I have to ask you, how can you cope with people's rudeness/ignorance?
it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of faith. It requires a lot of belief in what you're doing is the right, and it's the right thing to do, and it's a wonderful thing that you've been blessed with. Again, that brings me back to the 5,000 born a year. When you come around a group of parents that have a child with Down syndrome, it's hard for me to express this because I first heard it from the social worker at the Virginia Hospital in Fairfax. She said, the best thing you can do is get involved with the parents of these children because there is something unique about them. There's something special about them. And again, it's hard for me to say that because it sounds like I'm saying there's something special about me. That's not what I'm saying. But there does seem to be a common thread among parents of a child with Down syndrome. You're given a very special gift. And I think for whatever reason, the parents that have children with Down syndrome have a tolerance. They have a built-in mechanism for whatever reason to handle that type of discrimination, if you want to call it that.
Discrimination's a good word.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, the kind of this stink eye that you might see from across the room that, you know, either they're trying to figure out possibly what's different about your child or, you know, am I comfortable with this child in a class with my child? Is whatever they have can my child catch it? You don't know what might be going through their head, but it just requires patience, and I think the best thing is education. You know, I use those as opportunities to educate people. I would even go so far as to approach someone. Like, I remember specifically being in Virginia at they don't have Sam's Clubs there. They have Kirkland, some other type of club.
Some
Costco.
big box, yeah.
Oh, Costco. Uh-huh.
And the woman kept looking at me, and I had Corinne. She was a baby at the time, and I had her up in the front part of the stroller. And she had just gotten to the point where she could kind of sit up and, you know, handle that situation okay. But I noticed that, the woman kept looking, and then you kind of feel someone when they're looking your direction, and you look over, and then they kind of look away, and then you go back to doing what you're doing. And so I just politely said, "Hi, I noticed you kept looking at us. I don't know if you were noticing, Corinne has Down syndrome." And she's like, "Well, I was wondering because it was a nephew or a niece, and she was recognizing similar features."
Sure.
So that's all she was doing. She was just trying to figure it out. But we ended up having a great I think I wasted probably 30, it wasn't wasted time, but my husband would have probably thought, he was expecting me home long before my arrival, and I got to talking about, but it was, Corinne and everything going on with her, and we were talking about, her situation, the other woman's situation, and it was wonderful. It was an opportunity to educate, rather than me getting angry and jaded about, what goes on in our society at times, and just walking away and having a real bad day that day. I just took the opportunity to approach her, and luckily that worked out well. So I think these opportunities, they should be, those instances where people are kind of looking or wondering, can be used as opportunities for growth and education. And our organization, that's what we want to do. We want to educate parents in that regard, and educate essentially the world, if we could, about what this is, and how we can embrace these differences rather than be afraid of them.
Our guest this morning has been Natalie Marquez. We appreciate very much your taking your time away from your very important law practice. You're getting ready to make a physical move for your office and get into new quarters over there at 110 South Kickapoo, North Kickapoo, the old Integrity Data Service.
Yes.
So we appreciate your taking that time with us, Natalie. We know your calendar is pretty doggone full. The subject matter is very profound. It affects the community, because we have youngsters like your little Corinne in our community, and they welcome us with open arms, and we should do the same.
Oh, yes.
Very, very, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel like I did more of the talking than you getting your questions answered, perhaps.
That's why you're here, is
Okay,
to do
good.
the talk.
Good.
I have a generic close, something I read somewhere. It said, children are much harder to raise these days than in the past. Every generation says that. Thank you very much, Natalie Marquez.
Thank you.